or Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Permanent Secretaries, Commander Alvin Gale, Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Members of staff from supporting government ministries, departments and agencies, members of the media, all Jamaica watching at home and abroad, good morning again to you all. I'm just going to start with a couple updates from Cabinet. It is a post-Cabinet press briefing. I will read through them very quickly. I will see if I can see them because I left my glasses at home. So I will squint and give you the updates coming out of Cabinet. One of the issues we spent quite a bit of time on in Cabinet on Monday was in relation to roof repairs. I know when I saw the rain looking like it was going to come down, I thought about those who did not have covering for their house. And it's a concern that we in the Cabinet have, and so we are prioritizing roof repair. That is central to the work that needs to be done. The JDF will be a key part of the plans to repair roofs in the affected areas. So in addition to that, we're going to be working with Heart NSTA Trust to be able to provide young people to work with the JDF in repairing those roofs that have been damaged. In addition to that, you would have heard that there are delegations coming in from various countries that will be helping in that effort. We have teams coming from Guyana, from Ghana, from Ethiopia, and also from Rwanda. And all those teams will be working to repair roofs. They'll be doing so in conjunction with the JDF and also with the Heart NSTA Trust teams. The JDF will only be repairing roofs that are structurally sound. So they need to be structurally sound. I know Minister Vaz is also looking at house wiring because that's very important because we'll need to rewire many of these homes, and he's looking at how we can also support that. We're also looking at how we can use private construction companies to help us with the rebuilding efforts. And so JDF will be meeting with private construction firms to be able to have that happen. I know the NWA and the Prime Minister will be participating in a meeting next week so that we can have as many persons supporting this effort to rebuild in the affected areas. We've also assigned each of the visiting engineering corps that will be working in the affected areas. We've kind of designated them to particular areas. This could evolve over time. We do know that the Guyana team will be working in Trelawney. The Rwandan team will be in St. James. The Ghana team will be in St. Elizabeth, and the Ethiopian team will be in Trelawney. Those are being finalized, but I'm just giving you where we are in terms of our thinking in Cabinet. Another important decision coming out of Cabinet has to do with Christmas parties this year. And Christmas parties for government entities are off for this year. We will not be having Christmas parties. We have agreed to allow small in-ministry or in-department recognition and morale building activities. So if you're doing something in the office itself, that is fine, but no rental of external venues is allowed. We are strongly, though, encouraging all our ministries, departments, and agencies to conduct outreach activities with members of their team that have been affected and who reside in the affected areas. So we would love to see many of our ministries, departments, and agencies continuing the work that many are doing in terms of doing outreach in the affected areas. In terms of the private sector, we're definitely encouraging the private sector to continue doing what they are doing. We've had reports of many hotels saying that they're seeing cancellations from private sector entities. We really do need to kind of make up for what is happening in the West in terms of the downturn in economic activity. So those of us in areas that haven't been affected as much, please go out, spend money. The economy needs it, but at the same time, please spend time doing outreach in the affected areas. So again, we have issued directive, and Cabinet has agreed that Christmas parties in government, ministries, departments, and agencies will not take place this year. In terms of reconstruction grants, that's something that many members of the media have been asking, members of the public have been asking. What about reconstruction grants? After burial, there were grants that were issued. In Cabinet, we had a discussion around it. We are working towards January, early January, to be able to announce those reconstruction grants, but it is very much contingent on the work being done in relation to assessments, because we are only going to be giving grants to individuals who have been assessed as having been affected. And it's the same thing with the roof repairs. We will only be repairing roof of individuals who have been assessed by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to have been affected. And the assessments are ongoing. Minister is here and he'll be able to give you an update. I think he said he's over 37,000 homes have been assessed, which is a big, big number. And I congratulate the Ministry of Labor team on getting to that number. And we do plan to accelerate that. And the minister is here and he'll tell you more about that. Cabinet also approved expenditure for the funeral or the celebration of life for Jimmy Cliff. You would have heard that celebration of life will take place on Wednesday, December 17, 2025. But Cabinet approved the spend. The government of Jamaica will be taking on all of the costs associated with that celebration of life. And that was approved at Cabinet this week. There were other approvals, but I'll stop there and move on to our first speaker, who is very, very popular today. He's the one who's responsible for getting light back to many of the areas that have light back. So Mr. JPS, Mr. Light, Mr. Telecoms, Mr. Everything, the Honorable Darrell Vaz, Minister of Education, Energy, Transportation, and Telecommunications. You see what happened when I don't have my glasses, Minister?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Morning to everybody. Excuse my voice, but I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm going to leave JPS for the last, but since I have not been here for a week, I just wanted to give some quick updates on other portfolio responsibilities as it relates to Melissa. So Petrojam, thankfully, the country's fuel supply remains stable and secure, with the Kingston Industrial Loading Rack resumed operation, as we know, within 48 hours of the hurricane. And since October 30th, more than 3,600 tankers have been loaded, along with over 60 tankers at Montego Bay facility. The Montego Bay facility is now back to normal loading operations, which is good news, especially for the West. And our national fuel inventory remains within the internationally accepted comfort range of 2 to 3 weeks supply, and shipments continue to arrive following the completion of the refinery's maintenance shutdown on November 30th. All our airports managed by Airports Authority have resumed operations, though the levels of impact differed significantly. Sansa International, as you know, sustained the most damage. Relief flights began operating there on October 30th, followed by commercial operations on November 1st. Full restoration is projected to continue into February to March 2026. That is in relation to the repairs. And by contrast, Norman Manley International and Ian Fleming and the domestic aerodromes experienced only minor damage and returned to full operations by October 30th. So far, between October 29th and December 2nd, Jamaica's aviation sector staged a swift recovery, processing over 3,000 flights and recording a 26% increase in activity within just 2 weeks. Relief operations have been especially strong, with 935 relief flights, up 50%, and more than 310 helicopter missions supporting evacuations, medical transport, and obviously supply drops. All major airports were restored to service within 24 to 48 hours, beating the 72-hour target. So far, we have processed 212 expedited relief authorizations and moved an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 metric tons of relief cargo. So, for civil aviation, I can say we exceeded all recovery targets and remain a critical driver of national relief and recovery efforts. Seaports, to manage peak season cargo volumes and support ongoing Hurricane Melissa recovery efforts, the community has implemented a series of extended operating hours across November and December 2025. The port community system is offering extended Saturday hours from November 15th to December 13th, while Kingston Wharves has lengthened its weekday gate operations to 6 p.m. through to December 23rd, and opened its warehouses on November 29th, December 6th, 13th, and 20th. Additional dates. So, as I said, the seaports are responding, and thankfully, we're getting quite a bit of relief supplies coming in through the ports on a weekly basis and being able to move it off as quickly as possible. Digicel, both Digicel and Flow continue to show strong and sustained recovery. As of December 5th, Digicel had brought 749 of its 925 sites back online, representing 94% restoration. About 81% of the mobile network is now functioning, supported by a combination of commercial power generators, satellite technology, wherever infrastructure was heavily damaged. On the fixed side, Digicel fiber network has shown robust recovery in many parishes, Kingston, St. Catherine, and Manchester, with more challenging conditions in St. Anne, Westmoreland, and St. James. Companies continue to work to improve the service. Flow is advanced in restoration, is now at 86% restored, with 64% of customers back online. Significant work being completed on fiber repairs and network rerouting, and Flow continues to ally its progress with JPS restoration, especially in the corridors Ocho to Spanish Town, Falmouth to Montego Bay, and Mandeville to Maypen. On the mobile side, 80% of the sites are back in service, allowing the network to carry 97% of its pre-hurricane traffic, which is excellent. Temporary mobile units have been deployed in heavily impacted communities in Westmoreland and St. James, while the technical teams continue to strengthen the inter-site communication. One last thing before I move on to the big topic, which is the restoration, and that is projects and additional support through the National Energy Poverty Reduction Project. I want to speak to government's targeted support for vulnerable households. Some of the previously allocated $1 billion under the National Energy Poverty Reduction Project will be used to assist families severely impacted by Hurricane Melissa. This program, which will be implemented by GSF between December 2025 and March 31st, 2026, focuses on restoring safe electrical access, repairing homes, providing house wiring for regularization, and supporting GER recertification, and offering small solar solutions to vulnerable groups. It is expected to benefit thousands of households across 7 parishes and 14 priority zones. We anticipate a total cost of $1.479 billion, leaving a funding gap of $479 million, and we continue to work through the appropriate mechanisms to close that gap. Obviously, with this being such an important part, we will make an appeal to the Ministry of Finance to allocate based on the Hurricane Melissa allocations. Our recovery is advancing steadily, and while the Western parishes still face significant work, our teams remain fully engaged. And I want to thank again Jamaicans for their patience and commend the men and women on the ground who continue to restore critical services. Also of note, as of December 1st, 90.7% of point-of-sale machines and 87% of the ATMs are now available. That also is huge in relation to people being able to access getting money and other point-of-sale materials. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to close on the issue of the JPS restoration. And I want to be very clear in relation to reiterating some of the information that I've already stated, just out of abundance of caution and to quiet the miscommunication and the noise. Last Tuesday, I'd have made a statement outlining the decision of the government to lend the JPS $150 million in relation to restoration, early restoration. This came on the basis that their projections were taking us to April, May, and possibly June 2026, based on their current cash flow. Let me indicate again that the loan was a decision recommended and supported by the Ministry of Finance and approved by Cabinet to lend the JPS the $150 million specifically to fast-track restoration, moving us from 82%, where we are now, to 90% by Christmas, New Year, and 100% by end of January. That would mean taking on 300 additional linesmen on top of the 170 that are here now. Without that money, the 170 linesmen would have been decommissioned this week, meaning that they would be decommissioned and have to leave because there would be no funding to pay them. So the $150 million goes towards keeping those 170 linesmen in Jamaica and adding another 300 linesmen. That comes with the equipment, the trucks, and all that you see currently on the road now that 170 linesmen are doing. That decision was made to get out of having to give any sort of extension on the existing license. This minister and this government made a commitment to the people of Jamaica that the license that expired in 2027 would not be renewed on the same terms, which we all know and agree that the license is 25 years old. It was flawed from day one, and it is even more flawed based on the time that has elapsed and what the energy landscape does now. So in order for us not to grant the 15 years that was asked for by JPS and the 8 to 10 years that the multilaterals asked for to fund the JPS, we decided to be a responsible, caring government and lend the $150 million 5 years with simple terms, 5.5%, which is very concessionary because we don't want a pass-through for increased bills because of interest rates. So we were mindful of that. It allows us to continue on the track to negotiate a new license with JPS or with whoever. So we have separated Melissa from what we were on track to do pre-Melissa. And I can say to you that in 2 years, if the JPS is successful in negotiating a new license, they'll be able to raise capital and repay the $150 million. If they don't, the government has already indicated in June of this year, rather than giving them an automatic 10-year additional extension for non-response by the government, we indicated to them that we were not prepared to renew the license on the same terms, and therefore, if necessary, we will be prepared to acquire the assets of the JPS. So our $150 million is secured either way. I just don't get what all of this noise and confusion is about. Jamaica, the simple thing would be a decision that will be taken on your behalf. Grant a 15-year extension and continue to suffer under the current license for 15 more years, or lend JPS $150 million. Take the argument of extension out and proceed to restore electricity in the shortest possible time. I don't get it. Anyway, it's very clear. Last week, Tuesday in Parliament, after I spoke, the questions kept coming, and there was a definitive opposition by the opposition of releasing $150 million without knowing where the balance of money was coming from. So let me speak to that very clearly. The original estimate was $480 to $600 million. It has been revised down to $350 to $400 million. The $150 billion that we are lending them was not picked out of a hat. They told us they needed $75 million a month for 2 months to bring us full restoration. So yesterday in Parliament again, the noise and the mischief about the fact that the $150 million is not enough, and where is the other 200 or 250 million coming from? That's not a discussion that we have had with the JPS. We have had a discussion about $150 million. The JPS is owned majority privately, so the government has no obligation to fund a private entity. We did so in this case because of the benefits, and therefore we have nothing in front of us either to qualify at this stage the amount or the final assessment of the amount of money that Melissa has caused damage to JPS. We don't have it from the JPS, and I don't have it from the OUR. So I can't speak to any other figure other than what is out there. Secondly, there's no proposal in front of us for any additional money outside of the $150 million. So I want to make that very, very clear. Also, the $50 million through the Emergency Disaster Fund, that is a separate disbursement by the OUR, which is entitled to JPS in a disaster once they can quantify and qualify and justify their claim. So I wanted to make that also very clear. I want to also say that the rationale and benefits to the people in the affected parishes and wider Jamaica are very straightforward. 4 months on top of 1 month already without electricity. 4 more months, meaning 5 to possibly 6 months, is unbearable for the people, and it is absolutely unacceptable for our government in a recovery mode. The fast-track recovery and the rebuild process is critical. It affects government and business revenues, JPS's revenue, to enhance their financing ability to continue the work that needs to be done after restoration. It restores jobs, creates new jobs and business opportunities in the most affected areas and across Jamaica. So again, I'm still not quite understanding what the discussion is about in relation to the benefits of 150 million US dollars, 23 billion Jamaican dollars out of the 6.7 billion dollars that Jamaica will have access to. This is a wise business decision, a wise government decision, and it's a responsible decision that will not back away from. And I want to indicate, I as minister, if I had to do it, I would do it every day and twice on Sundays. So I take full responsibility and I have no apologies and I have no explanation because the people who are suffering get it. They know what we are trying to do. And we will continue to do so in the shortest possible time. JPS, as of right now, is at 82%. We are planning, and I want to go through this very carefully for you, to move, as I said before, to 90% over Christmas to New Year and 100% in January, early February. I want to give the country the Christmas commitments. The additional 300 line workers, along with their specialized equipment, have been mobilized. The barges with specialized equipment are expected to arrive prior to Christmas. The latest information I have, Minister Dixon, is that linesmen will start arriving here as early as this weekend ahead of the equipment, which we hope will dock sometime late next week into next weekend, latest early in the week of Christmas, and start working immediately. These line workers will be allocated to parishes with catastrophic damage, such as Westmoreland, to accelerate redesign and rebuild efforts. We have already provided power to Savlamar Hospital, the town of Savlamar, Nigwil, and surrounding communities as we continue to expand our rebuild in Westmoreland. We are making arrangements for special accommodations and staging areas for equipment and material in parishes such as Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth to optimize logistics and efficiencies for the rebuild restoration efforts. Let me pause to tell you the level of planning that we are doing. We know that accommodations are short, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. We know they're not as short, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne. We are looking to get some kind of vessel, whether it's a cruise ship, hotel, whatever you call it, to dock between St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. So those linesmen that are dedicated at that parish will be staying on board and coming off every morning, going to work and coming back every evening. And they will be fed on the road for lunch while working, because we realize with Westmoreland at 88%, the travel commute to leave out of the parish and go anywhere else is not going to be as efficient. That's the level of detail. For the other side, we're fine. There's enough rooms and hotel rooms and Airbnb and whatever else. But we know that there's a problem. And we know that there's going to be a lot of the linesmen that are going to be targeted those two specific parishes. So that's why you're going to get the response that you're going to get between Christmas and New Year in those parishes. Also, and this is very important, we're working with the MPs and the municipal corporations to see exactly what they recommend as the priorities for their constituents and their parishioners to make sure that we target what is most effective and efficient for the Christmas season to ease the misery index in those areas. The commitment that the JP has made to me, which I have put in writing, all major town centers in all parishes will be restored by Christmas and New Year. It means all of those townships that are not or do not have electricity now will have, and that will be huge in terms of the effect for Christmas and New Year. So you will see the latest numbers in relation to the parishes. As I said before, the major problem that we have is that Westmoreland was the worst affected parish, and therefore they are at the highest number of persons who do not have electricity. So, again, I want to say two things in closing. And this must be specific to trying to get rid of the noise and the miscommunication and all that goes with it. For every time that somebody thinks or criticizes the government for steps that we are taking, I want those of us who have a comfortable bed to sleep in, some of us with air condition, TV, phone service, cable and internet, food in our cupboard and fridges, a business or a job and a salary, a place to go for a drink to get rid of the stress. There are tens of thousands who don't, and their only wish now would be for a tarpaulin to cover them from rain and sun, and a bottle of water to quench their thirst, and maybe a diaper for their young child. We as a government, we feel your pain, and this is why we have given you the electricity plan that we have given you today. I hear or see two specific MPs in Westmoreland who came to, one went on social media and hit out against the JPS loan, and one in Parliament yesterday who grilled the Minister of Finance about the prudence of this. Yet still, one of them on social media up to recently was crying crocodile tears in one and then fighting against it. I want to leave this with you. As usual, I like to go to my Oxford dictionary. And I Google crocodile tears. Tears are expressions of sorrow that are insincere. The origin, mid-16th century, said to be named from a belief that crocodile wept while devouring or luring their prey. That is the one on social media. The one yesterday that called We're Crying Parliament last week. We have a thing called dry cry. I looked it up and it said dry cry meaning in Jamaica. In Jamaican patois, dry cry often refers to pretending to cry or shedding fake tears to gain sympathy, attention, or manipulate a situation. It implies a false sense. It implies a false display of sadness without being genuine. I leave that to the Jamaican people to judge and to say to you as I close, God always knows best. And that is why the Andronis JLP government was chosen to lead this recovery and rebuild process. That's why I'm Minister of Energy working with JPS on early restoration of remaining JPS customers without light. That will be able to do so in a matter of weeks. I want to remind Jamaica that we are 5 weeks into Melissa, and we have restored 82% of JPS customers. First world countries have had less than category 5 and taken 6 months to a year to be able to do so. I want to say again, in closing, I stoutly defend the recommendation of the loan to JPS to Cabinet and the approval given, rather than an extension of the existing electricity license to JPS. And I have no regrets or apologies, as it's the best option for the people of Jamaica to allow for a return to normalcy in the shortest possible time. The government has done the right thing based on extreme circumstances that the country and the people face at this time, especially with Christmas and New Year's. And as I said a few months ago, I was going to give the people of Jamaica bus after bus after bus. I'm going to give them light after light after light. God bless Jamaica, and we look forward to continuing the work for you, the people.
Thank you, Minister. That was very good. And just note, in Cabinet, we have had extensive discussions on this matter. Not something that just decided willy-nilly. We discussed it at every single Cabinet meeting this was discussed. And the key thing for us was people need light. I had a meeting with my principals from the West. JPS was there. And most of the questions were for JPS, when will light come? Jamaicans in the West want light. And that was what we were driven by in Cabinet. How do we get light to the people of Jamaica in the shortest possible time? And we believe quite strongly that was the best thing to do. So Minister Vaz, thank you for your outreach. I know the people of Jamaica, the people in the West, thank you, Minister. All right, we're going to be moving along. As I said, there is PAAC this morning where more of these questions will come. But I now have Commander Gale with us, the head of ODPEM, who will give his update.
Good morning, Minister. Thank you. It has now been 42 days since the all clear has been issued, and while we have made some significant progress, we fully remain focused on the communities and families that are hurting and still in need of support. The National Emergency Operations Center remains activated at level 3, coordinating response, relief, and early recovery efforts across all parishes. First, let me indicate or speak about rather the human impact. Hurricane Melissa has been our most consequential disaster. It is deeply regrettable that to date we have recorded 45 confirmed deaths, with 13 persons still missing and an additional 32 deaths under investigation. Our thoughts remain with the families of those we've lost. In the aftermath of the storm, we have also seen 84 suspected and 30 confirmed cases of leptospirosis, with 12 related deaths, 7 of which have been confirmed, as well as 2 cases of tetanus and 1 death. These figures underscore the scale of the human impact and the seriousness with which the ministries, departments, and agencies of government continue to approach the recovery effort. As of last evening, 101 emergency shelters remain open across 7 parishes, housing 1,061 persons. Work continues between the MDAs and partners to identify suitable sites for prefabricated housing and other medium-term options, especially in communities where schools are still being used as shelters, so that normal school life can resume. As mentioned before, the Guyanese Defense Force has deployed to Jamaica to fulfill the promise made by their president to repair some 200 roofs in the parish of Westmoreland. The team commenced work yesterday and is living and working alongside their Jamaica Defense Force counterparts. In partnership with the ODPEM, the JDF also continues to coordinate with regional and international military partners, including Barbados, Bermuda, Rwanda, Ghana, and Ethiopia, arranging for the conduct of similar roofing repair missions across Jamaica. The long-term priority remains clear: safe, resilient housing and durable shelter solutions for those who have lost their homes. Thanks to strong national and international partnerships, we have also been able to mount a strong food and relief distribution operation. To date, the government of Jamaica has distributed just over 340,000 food packages, the ODPEM distributing just over 98,000, while Jamaica Defense Force, in support of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, just over 242,000 packages to affected households primarily in Western Jamaica. The food working the Food Assistance Working Group, which includes over 30 partners, has enabled the production and delivery of food packages and hot meals to 314,000 persons in some 379 communities. In total, the Food Assistance Working Group has distributed just over 112,000 food kits in 234 lives, while some 3.3 million hot meals have been distributed to approximately 190,000 persons. At the same time, just over 39,000 Jamaica household damage impact and needs assessments have been completed, helping to identify households in need of shelter and livelihood support. This data is also guiding cash grants and voucher programs that will help families to purchase food, building materials, and other essentials as we transition from the emergency phase into the early recovery and self-resilience. Churches and other faith-based institutions, the private sector, and willing Jamaicans continue to provide invaluable food distribution, clothing, and other relief items in the worst-hit parishes. Minister Vaz would have already mentioned the critical restoration of infrastructure and telecommunications. What I'll also indicate is that the National Water Commission had restored over 83% of its customer base. Majority of systems in all parishes are back online, and with the support of the 12 additional water trucks operating in the affected communities, they are able to deliver over 146,000 gallons of water to affected communities. What this has enabled is that over 60% of remittance agencies within the worst affected parishes are operational. In St. Elizabeth, over 69%. In Westmoreland, over 85%. Hanover, 83%. St. James, 67%. And Trelawney, 73%. Work continues to restore utilities and critical services. Our health sector remains stable. More than 50% of the health sector, of health facilities rather, in each parish are operational and supported by 2 field hospitals and multiple international and local medical missions. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, in partnership with PAHO and UNICEF, continue to roll out mobile clinics, mobile pharmacy services, mental health and psychosocial support, and also distribution of wash kits and medical supplies to shelters and affected communities. Environmental activities are intensified, including mosquito control and fogging across dozens of communities. We do urge the public to play their part, store water safely, clean up around your premises, and seek medical help early if you develop fever, vomiting, diarrhea, or such symptoms. To date, just over 17,000 contributors have donated funds through the GOJ Hurricane Melissa platform, totaling some 780 million Jamaican dollars. These funds are being used to procure building supplies to assist the Jamaican people. I want to encourage those at home and abroad that if you want to contribute or you wish to contribute, please use the official Support Jamaica platform at supportjamaica.gov.jm. In closing, let me indicate that the road to recovery is long, but Jamaica is moving along at a steady pace from emergency to the early recovery phase into rebuilding. We will affirm that no community will be forgotten. The ODPEM and other local authorities, international partners, the private sector, faith-based and community organizations are united in a single mission to restore lives and livelihood and dignity and to build back better, safer, and stronger. Thank you, and may God continue to bless our island home.
Thank you, Commander, for those updates. And as you heard, he said 800 and something million dollars collected under Support Jamaica. And again, earlier when I spoke to the engineering corps from Guyana, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Rwanda coming in and working with the JDF and fixing roofs, that money that has been donated from locals and those overseas, and especially those in our diaspora, that money is going to go to buy the supplies to fix back those houses. So that money is going to be used to help those that have been most affected and do not have the resources to build back on their own. We're now going to be moving to our Minister of Labor and Social Security, who is here with his team, and we're going to be hearing especially the important thing, assessments. When are the assessors coming? They've done a fantastic job already, and so we're going to hear from him on that and other initiatives in the Ministry of Labor. Please welcome the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. So I will focus on the assessments and also give an update, Minister, on the food-related expenditure as you asked. As it relates to the assessments, let me start by firstly putting in context that for burial, as a nation, we were able to do a little over 19,000 assessments in what would be between 6 to 8 months, double that amount of assessments in 1 month. And that is, to put in context, the level of upscaling in terms of efficiency, capacity, and focus that we have now, and also lessons learned from the event that we had July of last year. And also to remember that in the first 2 weeks post the Hurricane Melissa, our focus then was distribution. That said, as of December 9th, which would have been yesterday, we have recorded 40,144 household damage assessments completed. We have 544 assessors trained and operating on our platform, and we anticipate to double that amount. Cabinet has approved now the scaling up of household damage assessment submission was made recently, which will see us having the ministry's integrated assessment acceleration strategy supported by ministries, departments, and agencies that have field capacity to assist us in completing the remaining household damage assessments. And what do we mean by that? What we mean is that the Prime Minister has asked for an all-across government approach, collaborating to make sure that we can get the assessments, even though we have already ramped up, even further ramped up to ensure that we can provide all of the relevant information, accurate data that is that can be relied on and that is credible, to move on to the next phase with regards to providing housing support and other support. So the assessments, as you know, are the foundation of any benefit that is to be provided or deployed to anyone impacted by Melissa. That's we, in addition to our 544 assessors, have made submissions to increase that amount of persons that can be trained so that we can deploy more persons and, of course, increase the amount of assessments. We have 60 JDF Service Corps that are assisting 17 JDF officers that are in the West, and we have 30 more from the Service Corps that should be coming on. We have also 30 additional assessors funded through the World Food Program that are being formally onboarded, and they have begun their operations. We have 20 of our officers from Kingston and St. Andrew, MLSS officers that are stationed now in Mandeville to reinforce the St. Elizabeth deployment. We have 13 officers from St. Mary that are supporting in Trelawney. We have another 13 officers from Portland that are prepared to join the St. James team. We have liaison officers that have come in from Canada and also in from the US that are supporting the teams also in the West. And in total, that gives us more than 100 additional assessors that will be more of a constant in terms of doing the assessments. And I say this, Minister, because it is to be understood that where you have, for instance, 600 assessors, and many of them being volunteers, you don't anticipate that volunteers will be working 5 days a week. And so we need to expand the numbers of assessors so that in total we can have at least assessments being done by what would be an approximate of 600 persons throughout the weeks. And that will give us a scaling up to take us to the 150,000 assessments that we need done by end of January. That said, we are now negotiating additional support. We are working with the MLSS team in negotiations with the UNDP, who are experienced in this process. They have done a number of deployments across the Caribbean and across the world. Recently, 1,500 of their officers were in Peru. So we are having discussions with them to see if we can get a deployment of UN volunteers to assist. We're also working and having discussions with the various ministries who have in their respective portfolios already started to assign persons that will come into the cadre of assessors to give more constant support. There have been approvals now through the mission to ensure that those officers that are identified across the ministries, departments, and agencies will get the support of their ministry, which is essential in terms of not just identifying assessors, but actually the output, getting the assessments done. What it means is, beyond the numbers, we need persons who can be transported, who can be fed, who can be supported to go through the hills, the nooks, and the crannies. And that's why the support from the ministries, departments, and agencies will be critical in terms of giving us more bodies on the ground and boots on the ground that will be consistent and constant. We intend to have at least 200 teams deployed across the parishes that are our priority parishes: St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, St. James, Hanover, Trelawney, and St. Anne. And those teams will be fitted with supervision from members, officers of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, as well as our support partners. And the implementation timeline recognizes that we do have several public holidays in December. And so the accelerated assessment surge should see us working throughout December, working into January, and hoping to complete mid-January. I say verification and reporting and completion by the end of January 2026. I want to move, Minister, quickly, because I know time is on you, to just give a very brief update on the food-related expenditure, which I know many persons have been asking about. You would have heard the report already as it relates to the matters regarding the distribution of packages. But let me just indicate that as at the 9th December 2025, total expenditure related to food procurement under the Hurricane Melissa emergency response amounts to 225.1 million from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Please note that if we were to integrate the food that has been received in terms of donations and also packaged and deployed, that would increase exponentially. But this is what we have procured from the ministry. It includes $52 million spent pre-hurricane in terms of purchases of food that were pre-positioned across the country, and also 173.1 million in post-hurricane expenditure. Finally, I want to advise that the self-reporting mechanism is live. You can go to the ministry's website. I don't know, Minister, if it is also on Support Jamaica. I believe it's also on support.gov.jm. And the relevance of this self-reporting, again, is from the lessons that we have learned throughout burial. When our team members go into the communities, inevitably, you will have households that we will seek to advance the assessments, but we're not able to do so because the persons may not be there for good reason. Many persons are now staying with family, and they may not be aware, they may not hear the call or the town crier in terms of being advised of when the assessment will be done. So we have scheduled assessments that are communicated to the relevant persons across the parishes to ensure that persons are aware and that they locate themselves to advance the assessments. And if we do not find you, if for whatever reason we come to your community, to your street, assessment is not done, we ask that you utilize the self-reporting mechanism. It notifies us and gives us the opportunity to schedule an assessment with you so that you are not left behind. Again, these are lessons that we learned from the Beryl experience. Additionally, we have an email that is available for you if you require any further information in relation to assessments, as well as if you find yourself to be capable of joining the assessor's corps. Meaning if you are available, if you have the capacity in terms of transportation, and if you are willing, we are making a call for all who want to assist in this process and are able to and want to be considered to reach out to us at 876-922-8000 to 13. That's 876-922-8000 to 13. And the email is clientcare@mlss.gov.jm. So feel free to send us your information, advise us where you are. Of course, the more support we can get in the West is the better. It reduces the need and the expenses in terms of transportation. And so we make that specific call for anyone who has the time and is willing to put in the effort. This is a collaborative effort that is required across government and throughout private sector. That's the only way that we will achieve our collective goals. I want to just close off by indicating that we recognize that there are still several persons who may feel like no one has come to me yet. We hear those cries. We monitor social media, we monitor the traditional media, and so we are aware of some of the statements that have been made. I want it to be very, very clear that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, working across government with our partners, it is our intention to make sure that no one is left behind, particularly the senior citizens, the persons with disabilities, those vulnerable groups. And so I use this platform to call on all community leaders, civil society, private sector, all who are in and across Jamaica, that if you know anyone who either says or who you can confirm requires support, needs to get an assessment done, and has not been assessed or feels that they have in some way been omitted, please reach out to us. We have been deployed across the country, but even so, from our experiences, we have learned that no matter how far and wide we go, there will be circumstances where persons will be missed, and we need your support to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister, for that. And again, we're calling for all those who can assist to assist. There is a volunteer list on the Support Jamaica site for those who want to volunteer. And the ministry has been going through that list and has been calling people who had volunteered, but we've not really been able to get as many people out of that mechanism. So if you're specifically available to help with assessments, please reach out as the minister has advised, and every ministry is mandated by cabinet to identify individuals to help with the assessments. We're going to do everything we can to make sure the assessments take place very quickly. In terms of the questions that I had from the media, we put ourselves available for them. I don't see them in the room today though, but I had two questions online. One had to do with JPS, which was answered already by Minister Vaz. And then the other question had been about the food, money spent on food. And you heard it from the minister, 225.1 million from Ministry of Labour. And ODPEM has also spent 80 million. Most of the food spend would come from the Ministry of Labour though, so you can understand that. And so I think we've dealt with the questions from media that I got specifically sent to me. And we're at 10:01, and I know some had to leave already to get down to PAC. I thought this was a good and productive press briefing. You got some very important information. We're not letting up on JPS, and we are also working really hard to have the assessments done. And so I thank you all, and we will see you again next week. God bless Jamaica, land we love. Thank you all.
No more dependency, it's the best, and yet we know best for us. Cause we want the country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public while